All right, so we're going to talk about order of operations today. And as we talk about order of operations, we've sort of started talking about that already. So can anybody remind me what order of operations is? PEMDAS. So I hear people say PEMDAS. What does PEMDAS stand for? Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. What's special about like the M, D, and the AS? Isabel? Okay, if it's multiplication or addition, you can switch the order. Good. If you have all multiplication and division, do you always do the multiplication first? You just go left to right. Good. If it's multiplication, division, you just go left to right. Same with addition, subtraction. Where did we say square roots go? With exponents, because square root's the opposite of the exponent 2, right? So the squared. Square root and squared are the opposite. Where does absolute value go? Yeah, they act like parentheses. So those bars act like parentheses. So keep that in mind as we go through. Those are kind of like the additions that we've made over the past couple weeks. Okay, so the order of operations you guys told me is PEMDAS. And again, sometimes I write it like this. Because multiplication and division, we just go left to right, and addition and subtraction, we just go left to right. All right, so in this case, this first expression, what would we do first? I'm going to move some stuff so we have a little bit of room. Yes. All right, so I'm going to do the exponents first. Now, which is our exponent? Negative 4 to the second power, but it doesn't have what? Parentheses, which means what? Negative 4 times 4. The negative only goes with the first one, so it's going to be like negative 4 times 4, which is actually what? Negative 16. Okay, so I choose to just do one step at a time in these order of operations problems. You guys can try to do multiple steps at a time. That's fine with me if you can keep track of it in your head, and mental math is something you're really good at. Sometimes people overestimate their abilities with mental math, so it might be helpful to write out one step at a time. That's how I'm going to do it. I know some of you guys are going to look at that and think like, I don't need to do this one step at a time. That's okay. If you want to do some of them in your head, that's fine. I just choose to write them all out. Okay, so what's going to happen next? 3 times 2. Because we don't have any parentheses, we're done with our exponents. So now we move on to multiplication and division. What's 3 times 2? So it's going to be negative 16 plus 24 and then minus 6. So now all I have left is what? Addition and subtraction. So now I just go left to right. So first, I've got negative 16 plus 24. Are those signs the same or different? So am I going to add or subtract those? Subtract. 24 minus 16 is 8. Positive or negative? Positive. Why? The 24 is the bigger number and it's positive. Good. So we've got 8 minus 6, which then equals 2. So 8 minus 6 is 2. Was any of that actual arithmetic hard? No. What's the hardest math that we just did there? Converting all of it down to like 16. Yeah, it's not that, like, probably the hardest mental math that you just did was 24 minus 16. Honestly, that was probably the most difficult of the arithmetic. But what makes it hard is what Daniel said. Keeping track of where things go, what steps you do things in. So order of operations is not challenging in that the arithmetic is hard, but where do you think people make mistakes? PEMDAS, negatives, people make mistakes with negatives all the time. I'll tell you this right now, every answer you get today for all the ones at your board should be a whole number. So if you're not getting a whole number, that means somewhere your steps were off. And again, you don't have to write it out line by line by line, one step at a time if you don't want to. But I don't make mistakes because I do it that way. So that's my recommendation if you've made a mistake to go back and try writing one step at a time. Okay, so let's try the second one. What's going on in this one? There's some shapes we've never seen before, some symbols we've never seen. There's parentheses, and then there's also, there's an exponent. Brackets. What the heck is a bracket? It's like a parentheses. It acts just like a parentheses, except that instead of being rounded, it's squared. So it's like having parentheses, it's just that it's like another set of them, so they changed them to brackets so it looks different. So which one do you actually start with? The one all the way on the inside. So the parentheses, so this 5 minus 2 is going to be the first thing you do. Then you're going to do what happens inside the brackets. Does anyone know what happens bigger than brackets? No, I mean like symbols. So we've got parentheses, and then inside would be brackets. Does anyone know what would be if we had another set? Not quite double parentheses. Sometimes you just see a bunch of parentheses. Sometimes they won't use anything, but they're called braces. All right? So the way I remember that is like they're kind of crooked. And if you have crooked teeth like I did for 5 years, you have to wear braces. All right? So braces look like that. Do not, if you have to draw them, don't like stress about making them look perfect. Just a wiggly line is fine if you like are like, I can't get these braces. Don't waste a lot of time on that. Okay, so braces are bigger than brackets. So we work from the inside out. So we go all the way from the inside. So the first thing you guys said we're going to do is what? 5 minus 2, which is what? Good. So I'm going to rewrite everything, except this time I'm going to leave out my parentheses because I did the math that's in them. So that becomes 3 to the second power. Now what do I do next? The exponents that's inside the braces, right? Or sorry, inside the brackets. So that's going to be what? So now I've got 25 plus or minus 9? Minus. Why is it still minus? It's not in parentheses as a negative. Good. Okay, so now what do? Now I subtract because it's inside the brackets. So I'm going to have 4. What's 25 minus 9? What is it? Oh, I thought you said the right answer. What? 16, right? That's what I thought. Okay, so my brackets are gone, but now I don't have a symbol. Why is it multiply? Because it's right next to it. Whenever there's no symbol, you assume that it's multiplication. So I'm going to have to do 16 times 4, which is 64. All right, so if you have multiple sets of parentheses or parentheses, brackets, and braces, then you work from the inside out. And as soon as you do the math that's inside them, what happens to your symbols? They disappear. All right? And again, if something is right next to something else, what kind of math do you do? Multiplication. So for instance, if I gave you this, 7 square root of 25, what would you do first? Square root of 25, which is 5. And then what would you do with 7 and 5? Multiply. It wouldn't be 75. They aren't just next to each other. It doesn't just become 75. So you multiply them and it's 35. So again, if there is no symbol, what do you assume? Multiply. Whenever you're like, I don't know what to do, guess multiply. It's probably right. All right, and then in this last one, this one is not harder, but a little bit more complicated because what other step do you have to do? Plug in. So I just take out the x and put in the 7. So my new problem is going to look like this. 21 all right, where do I start? The multiplication. So I'm going to keep my 21 minus 7 here, plus what's 2 times 5? Now all I have left is what? Addition and subtraction. So I just go left to right. What's 21 minus 7? 14 plus 10. 24. And there's your answer. Okay, so that ended up being the easiest one of all of them. But it looks like it might be harder. Why? Hang on one second. Why does that one look like it might be harder? Because you have an x in it. Is it automatically harder? No. Just like fractions, people think like, oh, there's an x, this must be really hard. It's not. Just take a second, look at it, think about what it means, and try it. Okay, Reggie.
Okay, so you know how you said like go left and right?
Yes. Does it? Well, let's try it. What's 10 plus 7? 17. 21 minus 17. 4. Is that the right answer? No. So you got to go left to right. So do it like you'd read a book. Left to right. Okay, so at your boards, there are 8 of these. I think we have time, so try all 8 of them. Remember, if you get a decimal, you're wrong. So try it again. Okay, so order of operations. The biggest mistakes that I saw people make were just careless little things. Like in number 10, I think was the one I saw the most mistakes on. Number 10, what did people do first? 40 divided by 4 minus 5 minus 3. What should you actually do first here? Yeah, so you do the parentheses, but then what people did is, so people did 4 minus 2 first. What should you do first? The division. So you've got to do the division first, which gives you 10 minus 2 is 8. So just be careful with that, because again, sometimes if you're trying to do it in your head, you think like, okay, well now it's 4 minus 2, and it's not yet. Okay. So what's going on here? What does this line in the middle mean? Divide. It means divide, but in order of operations, when you have a division bar like this, how do you do this? Yeah, you do. It's almost like the stuff on top is in parentheses and the stuff on the bottom is in parentheses. So do everything on the top using order of operations, then everything on the bottom. So everything on the top, what would come first? Exponents, what's 2 squared? So it becomes negative 22 minus 4 over, and then what's 5 minus 3? 2. Okay. What's negative 22 minus 4? It's negative 26. Marina, how come you added them? Good. They both have minus signs in front of them, so the signs are the same. So you add, and then you keep the sign of the bigger one. So it's negative 26 over 2. And then now we do what kind of math? Simplify using division. How many times does 2 go into 26? 13. Is it going to be positive or negative? Negative, because the 26 is negative. So if one of them is negative, your answer is negative. So negative 13. Doesn't change anything we've done. You just do everything on the top, then everything on the bottom. What's going on in this second one? 10 subtract 25, because these absolute value signs work like what? Parentheses, so we do everything inside first. So 10 subtract 25 minus 5. What's 10 minus 25? Positive or negative? Negative 15. All right, what happens with the absolute value signs? It makes it positive. So then I get 10. Perfect. Okay, so absolute value acts like parentheses. We do everything inside it. Then we simplify that. And then if it's negative, it becomes positive. If it's positive, it stays positive. Absolute value always makes it positive. Good. All right, and then we just subtract normally for 15 minus 5. Okay. When we're translating the following words into numerical or algebraic expressions, if we have order of operations, that means we have multiple things going on. So take a look at this one, which says 1/2 times the difference of negative 5 and 3. So what are our key words in there? Times and difference. Times means multiply. Difference means subtract. So 1/2 times, so 1/2 is 1/2, all right, times the difference of negative 5 and 3. So what does that look like? All right, why did that have to be in parentheses? It's the difference of negative 5 and 3, so you have to do that subtraction. That has to go together. All right? So that was a mistake a lot of people made on the quiz. People did, like, they forgot, it said, like, the sum of 4 times x, so, or 4 times x and 12, and people forgot their plus sign. A lot of people put in equal signs. So when you're looking at these, the first thing I always do is I always underline my keywords. So this says the square root of the quotient of negative 12 and n. So what are my keywords there? Quotient means divide. All right, so the square root of the quotient of this, which means what am I actually dividing here? Negative 12 divided by 2. How can I, or divided by n, how can I write that? I can use this, or I can write it as a fraction. I always write it as a fraction. I just think it looks cleaner. So negative 12 divided by n, and then what am I doing with that whole thing? Square rooting it. So what does that look like? Like a division. It's not the little 2. If it were the little 2, what would it say? Squared, right? To the power of 2 or squared. Square root means that it's the little house. So the house goes over everything. Do I need parentheses here? No. Is it wrong if you put them? No. So if you're ever in doubt, just throw parentheses in. It doesn't make it wrong, all right? It doesn't make it incorrect, and it would be wrong if you didn't put them here. All right, so at your boards, do the left-hand column. So 13, 15, 17, 19, 21, do the left-hand column.